Okay. And starting in 3, 2, 1. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of In Conversation with Dre. And look, guys, on the show, I love to give away a little piece of myself every episode, all the guests that I have on the show. I want to talk about the things that I'm interested in and have impactful conversations. And I came across the good Dr. Raquel Martin one day on social media, and these like digestible, casual, therapeutic pieces of content that had it was letting everybody know a little bit about therapy in a digestible, casual way. And I thought, hey, this is a pretty interesting person to talk to. So I have the good Dr. Raquel Martin on the show, host of the Mind Your Mental podcast. Raquel, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
I love the earrings. For those of you who are listening, you have these. I'll let you describe them because
So I love wooden earrings, but it's a Black-owned business in Tennessee, actually, embellished, and she hand paints. Like, she uploads videos of her hand painting the earrings, and this one says Black Lives Matter, and it has graffiti, and I love graffiti. So, but yeah, she like hand paints it, and she shows everything, and I was like, oh, I'm buying all of this. Like,
is it all like black themed jewelry,
yeah,
like black themed earrings?
like afros, and she also does calendars. She also does wholesale if you want to start your own business when it comes to sending that elevator back down. Like, she sells her own paints that she uses. Like, she is on it. Like, she is. Like, I don't know how she organizes all that, but she does it, and her stuff is so quality. I got an ornament from her. I have a book. She does book. What are they called? Bookmarks, but it's like a big paper clip, and it's like,
oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I have this bookmark that I bought when I was in Panama. So I'd done a bunch of traveling. I was in Panama. I have this bookmark, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, man, it always reminds me of like the bookstore that I bought it in. And I want, now that I'm thinking about it, I want to have bookmarks from like all over the world, because I've been all over the place, but I haven't had bookmarks. I usually get a fridge magnet, but bookmarks are probably a cool thing to get.
That is a cool thing to get, because I don't have enough bookmarks. I always end up putting like anything in them, like that's where you'll find my phone, or like I have a million socks everywhere, so that's where you'll find, like, I've put socks in books. Like, it's just
what?
Yeah,
like your kid's sock, or just like your adult sock?
No, my mom, she's always had this whole thing where she's always bought us like decorative socks. I don't even own white or black socks. Like, I only own socks, but they're everywhere, because I can always only find one or whatever. So like, if I'm reading in bed or if I'm reading on the floor, I have this thing where I'll try to hide books, because I never know where I'm going to be playing with my son. And he does this thing now where he's fine to play alone, but you cannot move. Like, I'll play by myself, but you need to sit here. So then I'll be on the floor, and I'll reach, and under the couch, there's a book, and I'm just going to sit here and read while you play. Because he doesn't want to play with me. He just doesn't want me to be away from him when he plays.
Right. Sounds like a Gemini.
Yeah,
I want you here, but not here. Just like a way.
Be a Gemini. His birthday is May 29th.
Yeah, that's Gemini. Wow, I can't believe I actually guessed that. Yeah.
Yeah, my husband is actually. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you're surrounded, and I'm a Gemini, so you're surrounded by Geminis.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, he does that all the time. When he first started doing it, and I'd just be like, well, can I play with something? So I just started hiding books. So it's like, if we're on the kitchen floor, I just reach and I'll be like, all right, well, you enjoy that. I'm just going to finish this book, because
I love that.
Independently play, but I'm also not trying to be wasting my time just sitting here. Like, you can only stare at your child for so long,
Yeah.
You're amazing, but
there's actually an author, this Canadian author. She's huge now, but it's funny that you mentioned that, because she just wrote a book on motherhood, and it was the character in the book, this mother. I might be misquoting it, but I believe what she said was the mom. It's a story of a woman that's having a baby, but she doesn't like the baby, and it's like, that's something that happens and nobody talks about that. And I never thought about that. Like, I never thought of the idea of a woman having a kid that she doesn't like.
Well, yeah. And plus, like, there's also this story about how, like, you instantly bond with your child.
Yeah. That
doesn't always happen. And it doesn't mean you're not going to instantly. That doesn't mean you're never going to bond with your child, but it doesn't mean, childbirth is such a, they're like, push, don't push, surgery, feed them. Are they eating? They're not eating enough. Change them. We got to wash them. We're going to take them away. And then it's just like, I barely got to see Cuz's face, man. Like, it's even like, so it takes time. Plus it's such a big transition. It's exhausting. Like, it's like, yes, I love you. I created you, and that's amazing. But it's just like how you can love people and not like them. Like, you've woken me up 12 times today. I'm tired. I'm hungry. You are draining my energy. But let me just stare into your eyes. Like, come on.
Yeah.
It's just, I think it's stories like that. There need to be more narratives like that, because parents think it's not normal to just be stressed out by your child. Well, children are stressful. When I'm working with parents of teens and they're like, oh, it's so much. I was like, oh yeah, teens are awful. They're terrible. They're just, and they're kind of built to be, they're self-centered. Like, if you didn't have to worry about anything other than like waking up and going to school, you have someone paying bills, you have someone doing everything, they're meant to be self-centered. This is a big developmental process for them. They're learning who they are. Like, they're meant to be focused on themselves. But in doing that, they could be jerks sometimes. And just normalizing, like, I don't know what to do when they slam the door, walk away. Like, are you concerned about, are they safe? Yes. I mean, do you want to read a book? Do you want to have a glass of, like, you don't need to ruminate on the fact that they're upset. They're upset. If there's nothing you can do, live your life, walk away. It's like, because teenage years are so hard, and being a parent is so hard. And I think naturally there's this pull to just be like, how do I do this? And how do I service you? But sometimes they just need space. So it's like, if you want to slam your door, like, one, don't slam my door, but whatever. Two, I'm about to dip. I'm about to have some wine. So since you want to be there, I'm going to be here. She's like, what do I do? And I'm like, well, she doesn't really sound fun to be around right now. So don't. Just.
And this is something I have no idea about, because I'm not a father and I'm not a woman. So but yeah, it blew up, and I wish I knew the title of the book. Maybe I can share it with you afterwards if you're interested.
Yeah, because that's an amazing narrative to have, and all we have are the narratives. The only thing we have access to are the narratives that are shared.
The Disney narratives.
Yeah. Don't get me started on Disney. So many issues. Like, I was supposed to see Prince and the Frog because it was like, it's a black, it's a black movie. But I guess since they're like, we gave them this black movie, that means that we can put all these stereotypes in it, just because
just throw it all in there.
Be fine with it. I got through like 10 minutes and I was just like, oh, is this where we're at? Okay.
Well, again, like, the people writing these stories, and I was having this conversation with somebody the other day, they were getting upset about, because there's this company here in Canada that decided to do some like a Black History Month mandate for their employees. And there was a bunch of things that their employees had to do for Black History Month. And one of them was, which at first sounds like, okay, maybe this is something, okay. But then one of them was, have a conversation with one of your Black employees. And it's like, okay, so you're mandating don't worry, just one for this month. That's it. Like, just a conversation.
After that, forget about them.
After that, whatever.
Get those coloreds out of here. We don't need that.
Those coloreds out of here. And like, I get it. Like, these companies, these CEOs or whoever, they want to do right, but they have no idea what they're doing. So they end up stepping on landmines and just.
Well, and that's because there's not many Black people in the room, or even at the time where there are Black people in the room, they haven't fostered an environment where they feel comfortable stepping up and like sharing things, because it's just like, even if they're like, oh, we have diversity inclusion, Paul over here listens to NWA once a week, just, but like, it's not even just about having people in the room. It's about having people who are educated within the experience to be able to feel comfortable sharing it. It's also having people who are comfortable with, or have the training to kind of provide that knowledge. Just because I'm a Black person doesn't mean I feel comfortable talking about the experience or telling you what activities to do with every single Black person, right? Like, people get trained in that. You can share what happens with you and your Black skin and walking in that experience, but it's annoying. Like, it invalidates people. And it's one of the reasons why so many people don't feel comfortable seeing a clinician that's not Black, because they like, if it takes so much to go to therapy, and it takes so much for me to find someone, and it took so much for me to decide to come in, I'm really going to try to decrease the likelihood that I'm never going to come back as much as possible. And for a lot of people, that's like, okay, I really don't want a white person because they may not offend me and they may get it, but they may not. And then I will never come to therapy again. Like, like it's not, I'm not saying as a Black person, I understand your experience better than any other person in the world, but I'm saying being a Black person as a result naturally makes you more comfortable with me. And therapy is about comfort,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, if you don't have a good therapeutic alliance, if you don't have a good rapport with your clinician, I can give you the keys to the kingdom. But if you don't like me, you're gonna be like, you know what? I know you gave me the lottery numbers, but I don't like your face and your tone was wrong. So I'm gonna leave. Like it doesn't really it doesn't really matter. It's about that experience. It's about that bond with your clinician. It's about that relationship. And a lot of people, it's hard for them to go to therapy anyway, especially Black people. So if there's one way that they can take out that barrier, they're gonna be like, I want someone Black. I'm not saying every single white person in the world is bad. Like that would be absurd. All skin folk ain't kin folk either. But I'm saying if there's any way for me to just take away one possible thing that's going to make this less difficult for me, I'm going to do it.
Exactly. And it's funny, I was having this conversation with somebody the other day. I recently went to therapy, as I told you before we started recording. Mm-hmm. And my therapist is Black. She's from Atlanta. And I had no idea about, I've done like therapy in a way, like couples therapy. Mm-hmm. But I hadn't done my own therapy with my own therapist, going every week, dealing with my own issues. And now I am, and she's from Atlanta, and it's been transformational. As I told you, I'd never even thought of doing therapy before, but the pandemic is tough. As we're recording this, we're still in the middle of the pandemic, and it's just been monumental. It's been so transformational, but so much around this that I want to get into with you, especially being a Black female therapist. There's probably so much insight that you have for me that I haven't even considered, but. Why don't we start from the beginning? Like, maybe just give me a little rundown, who you are a little bit, your background with therapy and mental health, and what led you to where you are right now, being the host of a podcast and putting out the content that you are.
So I went to Fisk for my bachelor's, HBCU. And psychology was one of the few classes that, other than Black history, that didn't bore the heck out of me. And then my professor was a Black woman, Dr. Sheila Peters, and she just was cool. And I was just like, I kind of want to learn more about Black psych. Like most of the time you do psych, you learn about like Freud and Jung and all these old white people, and versus like when she did it, she was talking about Mamie Phipps Clark, who was responsible for the doll study that showed which was integral in Brown versus Board of Education, or talking about the intricacies between social justice and psychology and how it contributes to our environment, and talking about the fact that there are so many Black psychologists and educators and how that could, creates our psychology in the first place. So I was sold off of that, like just being able to
I'm
to
sold.
Learn about that.
I said, I'm sold.
Yeah, right. Like it was something I was interested in, and being at HBCU was like a transformative experience, because I think that was the first time I ever had a Black teacher, let alone all Black teachers. And two, being more so around understanding, just having the aspect of knowing that Black people aren't a monolith, right? Like we had people from everywhere, and not even just America. Like there was a very big Caribbean presence at our school, and everyone's here is in the pursuit of academic excellence. And there's no such thing as, like, a lot of times when people describe themselves or they talk about things, they're like, I'm like 6'4", I like this, I'm white, I'm this or whatever. But imagine being in a place where it's just like, I'm this, I'm Black, and they're just like, well, everybody's Black. So tell me more about you. Like, right. Like, I don't need to use that descriptor because that's not a thing here. What I need to know about is like what you like and where are you from? Where are your people from? Like, what are you into? Like taking that out of it, taking the fact that we're Black because we're all Black out of it really just helped me to thrive, So I did my bachelor's there at HBCU. I did my first master's at a PWI, which was Lipscomb. And then I also did research at Meharry for a couple of years. And then I did my PhD in Maryland in medical and clinical psych. And during that time, all of my training primarily focused on like community mental health. I worked in some private practices, but it's definitely different. I definitely, I get more internally from working with people who wouldn't be exposed to my services. If I was like in private practice, it's more so you have more money. I just got more out of working with kids who looked like me and kids who were primarily excluded from the conversation, or, kids who, parents who was like, oh man, you seem just like my aunt. Like, I just got more from community mental health, because those are people who really need your services. And I'm not saying people in private practice don't, but community mental health is difficult. And because of that, it has a high turnover rate. And there's also less money than there needs to be and things of that nature. And I just thrived more in that, being able to connect with those patients, being able to see, like, one of my patients who had gone through 3 therapists in 4 months.
Wow.
She was my first patient at this center, at this community center. And I walk in the room, and, before I walk in the room, I get a disclaimer from my supervisor, like, she's been through 3 therapists. She's like, she doesn't really like therapy. I'm just going to give you a heads up. And, but this is your first client. So I meet her and I walk in the room, and she's there with her mom, and her face like lights up, and she's like, oh, your hair's black. It's a black girl. And she was 11. She was like, your hair's just like my hair. And I was like, I know, girl, I just got these twists, they're a little tight. And she's like, yeah, mine are tight too. My mom does them super tight. I was like, yeah, I know, but they got it, and we're just having a conversation. Yeah. My earrings were Sankofas. So it's an Adinkra symbol. And the mom mentioned, which is from Ghana. She is from Ghana. And she was like, oh, I recognize your ear. And it was just so, like, every moment doesn't have to be that transformative, but, just getting a disclaimer for a child that's apparently a difficult patient who doesn't like therapists or therapy. And then she vibed with me in like 5 minutes. Like, those experiences, normalizing the fact that parenting is difficult. And there's that added layer of being a Black parent. There's that added layer of, I understand you want to protect your child and you want to make sure they're safe because we're Black. And I'm not going to act like that's not a thing. I fear for, when I first found out I was pregnant with a boy, I was scared out of my mind, like, to protect the Black body and to protect the Black man. Mm-hmm. It's scary, right?
Big responsibility.
It's a big responsibility. But also thinking about, like, when you're telling them they have to be home at this time, you're not giving them explanations, you're being extra strict, they can't do anything, you're saying you don't trust them and stuff like that. They're not seeing it as you trying to protect them. And I get where you're coming from, but you're severing the relationship with your child. So trying to help parents also balance between their love language. Most Black parents' love language, of course, is like, I want to protect my child. Like, I want to make sure you're safe. I want to make sure you make it home. But it doesn't come off that way. It comes off as, I don't trust you. You need to do this. It's, it's a lot. So being able to work within that realm of not only parenting, but Black parenting, because it's not the same. Not only learning about psych, but Black psych. How, you can't deal with mental health within the Black community without, as a clinician, without identifying the systemic racism, the prejudices, the attack on the Black body that built this country. You can't acknowledge that you can't help someone without acknowledging that, right? Like, I have a patient, I did a video, like, a patient, they were like, oh my God, I can't express my emotions and it's so hard. And, I'm losing relationships. It comes out a lot in relationships because, it'll be like, why can't you tell me how you feel? I've said that as well. So I can say that. But like, why can't you just use your words? I can't read your mind. Just share. And it's just like, bruh, I'm fine, but it's hard when you never learned as Black men or as Black women, who are often seen as girls are seen as women before they should be. Boys are seen as men before they should be. The variant between dark skin and light skin. And if you can't show emotions, like, don't show being angry because they may think you're about to pop off and you may get arrested. Don't show yourself as fearful because you may be seen as weak. If you don't learn how to show the baser emotions, how can I express anything? Mm-hmm. And that's what's in the Black community. That's what happens in therapy, right? Like, it's not even like, I don't want you to beat yourself up. When we talked about normalizing, I don't want you to beat yourself up because you have difficulty expressing your emotions. I want you to understand the root of why you can't express your emotions and why it's difficult. And then we can go from there. Because a lot of people just feel isolated. Mental health, like, when you're dealing with things, you feel so isolated. And it's like, what if I told you there's a reason? Can we stop focusing on that and we can go to fixing it? You feel me? Let's lay this down, like, it's necessary.
And
like, yeah,
you're right. And a big part of expressing your emotions is understanding your emotions.
Yeah.
And a big thing for me with therapy was, like, one of the things that changed in my life when I really dove into therapy with my therapist was understanding what the root of these emotions were. Mm-hmm. And when I understood it, then I could unpack it and then I could explain it.
Exactly. If you thought there was no reason for this emotion. Everyone can express their feelings. Why can't I do it? You spend so much time trying to understand the root of it that you can't even address it, right? Like, you don't even want to, you have to understand the root of it first. And if you have someone who can help you do that, who can help you like emote that, then we can get you to the next step, right? Because it's not even just one emotion. There's such a range of emotions. When I'm talking to kids, I'm like, okay, when you're hungry, like, okay, what if you haven't eaten in an hour? Okay, then I'm hungry. What if I haven't eaten in days? Then I'm starving. That's the range of emotions. We're on the same realm. There's a difference between hunger and starving, happy and ecstatic, sad and depressed, and if you're not identifying them, you can't even express them.
Exactly.
Exactly. And if you can understand the range, like when I'm angry, this helps me. When I'm furious, this helps me. Like you have to understand it. And it starts with, there's so much of a fear, and everyone, I remember seeing this thing where it's like, drop your weapon and you'll be safe. But like, you can't drop your weapon when my skin is what you fear, like that's, to you, that's the weapon. Like you may not get this, but how? How?
Or knowing that you could get away with whatever happens, whatever consequences aren't going to reach you.
Yeah. Or or the respectability politics.
Or that.
Breonna Taylor was killed in her sleep in her home. People, can't walk around with candy and darn juices. People can't walk around, period. People can't be on their property, public property, in their beds, out their house. Can't be a child, can't be an adult.
And it's always their fault.
Yeah. How do you think that impacts us as a people? How do you, like, the fear of being, like, I was talking to a parent and she wasn't Black, and we were talking about like the excitement and stuff like that. And I'm always quite frank. So I was like, yeah, I'm excited about having a child. I'm very scared about having a Black child. I'm very scared about the way this world may attack my child and how long they get to be a child for long. So, my child's all cute and bubbly once he has a pamper, but once he's potty trained and he's out the house, he's a threat. That's scary.
Exactly.
She was like, I have no idea what that's like. I get to just revel in my pregnancy and I get to be in my pregnancy too, but I'm scared. And that's a layer that, I would never know what it's like to be a parent and just get to be a mom, right? Like just get to be a person, not have to take the extra step to worry about my husband taking the trash out and he got a hoodie on. I'll be like, God, no, please stop. Yeah. Is it light blue? What time is it? Just take the trash out tomorrow.
Yeah. Please. Take it in the daylight. Take it out in the daylight.
Like, take it in the daylight. Like, what is it to walk around without that? Like someone was like, oh, if I have a problem, I call the police. I wonder what that's like. To feel comfortable calling the police. I am a psychologist. Like, if we go into respectability politics, I am married. I have a child. We have a mortgage. I've been in school since been in school, multiple degrees, Hopkins, all the big names. I wouldn't call the cops.
Well, the system wasn't designed for you.
Yeah, no, the system was never designed to protect us. So we can't keep saying the system is broken. It was never made for us. But if someone broke into my house, I'll be darned if I call the police so somebody can come in here and shoot my husband. Like, we ain't doing it. So like, what is it like to just have that? Like, sometimes I just think like, man, you would call the cops if something went wrong? What's it like to feel that protected? That's amazing. I wouldn't, because they come in here and shoot my husband.
And it'll be his fault.
And then it would be his fault. Why didn't you announce it? What? What? Like, it's just, but I'm glad you're in therapy, because therapy is such a unique relationship where
it is,
it doesn't really have to be reciprocal my whole time. Like, your therapist's whole time is dedicated towards you, like everything. And most relationships, if they're good, they're give and take, right? But all I need you to do, like show up and do the work. But it's like, what's your goal? All right, let's do it. Every single day, we're working on this goal. All you time.
So that's a good segue into different types of therapy styles. And what would you say your style is for therapy? You have a new patient, let's say a guy, they come in, they've never done therapy before. What's your style? How do you approach them?
I just tell them I'm like the coolest person they'll ever meet. No, I mean, my style is the same way kind of in everything. I think I have a therapeutic tone because I'm super loud. So I do tend to bring that down to a certain thing. I'm just a loud person. But I focused on rapport building first. I'm a big believer in, like I said before, like the Therapeutic Alliance, which is the bond that you have with your clinician, and not like a bond in terms of like, you know, BFFs forever, but understanding that we're working together to achieve this goal. And if I am off-putting, if, you know, my tone is something that puts off, if I describe things in a way that you don't understand, you know, the alliance is going to suck. So like my typical first session is rapport building, getting to know you as a person, which you can't even do in just 50 minutes, but I'm not going to come in and be like, you need to do this, you need to do that. First, I'm not a coach, I'm a psychologist, so I'm not sitting here telling you what to do. But I really just want to know kind of like, what do you want to work on? Like, what are some of your goals, or who are you as a person? I can't delve into the intricacies of your mind if I don't even know likes and, you know, dislikes, like, you know, what brought you in here? And most of the time it's digging, because it's just like, I don't know why I had to come in here. You know, my spouse, you know, brought me in and then they said I had to go to therapy. They was going to leave me, which actually happens a lot of times. But, you know, or, you know, my mom said I need to be here, or, you know, I figured I'd just try it out. Mm-hmm. And I automatically go into trying to assess, but in like just a normal conversational way. So if I was talking to you and I'm like, oh, okay, so what do you like to do for fun? And you'd be like, oh, you know, I actually like to read. Oh, cool. What are you reading? Oh, I actually haven't read in a minute because, you know, lately I don't really like reading, or I can't stay up to read. So that's a check mark right there. Mm-hmm. Lack of interest.
Really?
Yeah. Lack of interest in activities that you didn't used to have, or you no longer have the energy for activities that you used to like. That's a check mark in my head. But it just comes off as a question. It's, oh, okay, you haven't read in a while. Okay. So, okay, what else? What do you...
A check mark for what though?
For like I see as a check mark as a, like, this is a possible stressor, right? Like, because you enjoyed an activity, but you no longer enjoy the activity and you don't do it anymore. And a protective factor within your life of like being able to deal with stressors are having outlets for stress, and outlets for stress are activities you enjoy, but an activity you used to enjoy, you don't enjoy anymore. So now you don't have that outlet. So now when you have the same level of stress or more levels of stress, you don't even have a way to deal with it. So that's a tick mark of like, okay, that's something I need to stay tuned in, right? Or, oh, okay, so how you feel? Like, you're eating okay? Are you sleeping okay? Like, yeah, I'm sleeping okay. I was like, cool, how many hours of sleep you get? Like 6. Oh, okay, 6 can be normal for people. You always get 6 hours? No, I used to get 8, but I can't seem to go to sleep. I'd be tossing and turning all night, you know, and so now I'm not sleeping well. That's a check. So if you are walking around during the day and you are tired, your nutrition's going down, and you're inside because we're doing a pandemic and stuff like that, you're not even at your baseline of where you're supposed to be, right? You're less likely to be able to manage things. A lot of people have stressors about ADHD lately, but a few people know that like concentration issues can also be linked to depression and anxiety. Those are actually presenting symptoms. Those are criteria that I would be able to check off as you meet this criteria for anxiety. Concentration issues also have to do with sleep and getting exposure to light and being active. If you haven't slept for 6, you know, you're not sleeping right, your brain can't divert the amount of energy it needs to get you to be there cognitively. Your body's just like, man, I'm not about to remember that assignment. I'm sitting here I'm trying to stay alive. You haven't slept right in weeks. Okay. So no, I'm not giving energy to your concentration right now. What I'm trying to do is give energy to your legs so you can walk to this meeting and come on back. You want me to give you all this energy? You need to go to sleep. That's what your body says. There's only so much energy your body has, right? And it's diverting attention to where it needs to be. So I ask about stuff like that, but it's always like a conversational matter. Like, it's kind of just like, oh, okay. All right. Well, you know, some people don't want to read all the time. It seems like you're not enjoying that. Do you anything else you enjoy? No. Wow. So life is just, you're tired. You don't like the stuff you used to like. And then your wife's on your case about coming here. Sucks. Like, well, what is she saying you need to work on? Everything. That's a big list. Okay.
That's so interesting. It sounds like some of the conversations that I had with my therapist, like where I was when I met her compared to where I am now. Like, we've both said to each other, it is a completely different person. She's like, I wish you could see it from my perspective. Because yes. when I met you, you were in such a different place, and now where you are, it's like a totally new person. She's like, I wish you could see it from my. Oh my
God. Like, when my patients make progress, I'm probably gonna do a video on this. I'll be one that like, I mean, at half the time I'd be like, man, you told me you got 8 hours of sleep. Are you kidding me? Come on with it. Like, you know, like I just, and it's not like I'm just not going to be excited. I feel like you don't always have to be excited, because one of my patients, of course, like downplaying their progress. And I was like, well, you know what's good about therapy? You don't have to be excited, because I'm gonna hold that in for you. So I will be excited for the both of us. Okay. You just decided that you didn't want to do something, so you told someone no. What? Dap it up. Like, I will be corny. I will be excited because you don't see it, but I see it. I'm like, when they set boundaries, I'm like, oh, you fancy. Okay. What else you tell them? You told them no. Did you give a reason? You don't have to.
You don't have to. Boundaries are so important. I learned that. I learned boundaries. I learned grace. I learned empathy.
It's a lot, but I think therapy is such an interesting relationship. I consider an honor the fact that people decide to share that stuff with me, and I don't take it lightly. But it's also like being able to see people grow. It's like, man, look at you. Look at what? Like, I just be so excited. It's good. And you should enjoy your job and stuff like that. But it's always good to see that kind of progress and be able to share that with patients, because I think some people think you have to come into therapy because you've had some huge transition or stuff like that. But I keep stuff conversational in the beginning, and we work on goals. It's your time. You can come to therapy just because you want to be happier, or you want to understand why you're not as happy as you used to.
Right. Why I don't have any energy anymore, or why I don't have the motivation like I used to.
Or I just need someone to be able to, like, I'm trying to prepare for something, or I want to work on being more assertive, or things like that. My style is always conversational. And when we start in, because I just want to learn more about you. I'm not going to come in telling you stuff to do, because that's not even appropriate. Like, I don't even know what your life is like. Imagine if you come into a first session with someone and they tell you, like, it's a one-on-one session, and they're like, well, you just need more, stuff. You need more stuff that you enjoy. So, like, go out to dinner, call your friends, do all this. And then you leave that session because you didn't really, and you never come back because you didn't get to share that, like, I actually don't have money to go out. One of my stresses is the fact that I don't have any money, but we didn't get to that because this is my first session. My friends don't talk to me anymore because I don't know why, but they don't talk to me. We didn't get to that because that's the first session. You just gave me all this advice. And one of the reasons I'm here is because I'm struggling with all these things. And you can't get to that in the first 50 minutes. So I gave you all this advice. First of all, you're never coming back. Like, period. Like, the last thing you need is someone else who doesn't understand you. That's like that. And that's like the ultimate bad session. But sometimes people do that. They're like over here throwing out advice, and it's just like, yeah, it's going to be a no for me. Let me get that copay. I'm going to pay that copay while I'm out. You will never see it. Like, oh, you want to book your appointment? I'll call.
That's those IG therapists.
Yeah, like, I'll call, but yeah, conversational, rapport building. Always get to goals, though. As a therapist, as a psychologist, I always feel like my job is to not have a job. So we work on these goals, and when you achieve them, we can add more goals. You may decide you don't want to come to therapy anymore. Therapy is work. You may decide you need a break by telling me you need a break, not by no showing. Make that the clip. Is there a clip? Don't no show your therapist. It's rude. But if you decide you need a break, then we decide that. But it's to come up with goals, right? And I need to know you more to come up with goals, to see what works best for you, to see if you prefer like a more direct style of me asking questions, or if you prefer to kind of like go off riff, to see how well you would do with homework, to see if you want your worksheets or stuff written down, or if you do better with an app. Like, I kind of got to know your vibe. And to do that, that's more conversational. And of course, have all the training behind it. But this is what works. I wouldn't be able to be a good psychologist if I wasn't able to also be myself. And I am a conversational person. Like, I'm a casual person. I can, I've had patients as young as 5. I've had patients as old as like 50, 60. If I can break down cognitive dissonance to a 6-year-old, if I can talk about affect identification and the range of emotions to a 5-year-old, if I can talk about like the connection between thoughts, feelings, and behaviors to a 10-year-old, that's the job. Like, you got to be able to do that. So to do that, you kind of have the skill to be able to be rapport building, to know if you feel necessary for like you to talk more, to kind of pick up on the tone of the room, or even the silence of the room. Because when it comes to therapy, silence speaks volumes. If you've been talking this whole session, and then I mentioned something about your best friend, and now you have nothing to say, and how that relationship ended, okay, we'll come back. But that's the thing. That's a check. Like, that's a ding, like, it doesn't always have to be, it's not going to be me saying, tell me about it. because you didn't talk about it. It could be like, and I'm going to bring this back to this.
You're just
or
going to put it to the side for a bit.
Yeah, because sometimes if you provide someone with something before they're ready to receive it, it can feel like an attack. Even if it's the right thing, it can feel like an attack. It's also, we have weekly sessions, and if you want to do multiple sessions a week, we have that. But I also need to be able to gauge as a clinician when you're ready to receive that, because that can also sever the relationship, and then you're never going to come back.
Right.
And then sometimes with therapy, people not only don't come back to you, that's their one story of why they don't go to therapy, why they will never go. And it's like, crap. So it's a stressor. It's like, oh man, I'm not trying not to mess this up. It's kind of like jumping rope. It's kind of like, do I tell them? Do I say it? Do I identify it? Nah, I'm just, okay. And you get that from training and being with patients and knowing it and being like, okay, so, this is what I learned in this, and watching your videos. When I was training at Hopkins, my sessions were recorded. And we reviewed those sessions with my supervisor.
Wow. Which
is like really just, I feel like there's nothing more intimate than someone watching you use your skill and just being like, I wonder why you used that wording. I don't know, girl. Was it bad? But it's the intricacy of the training. That's why I recently posted about it being different than talking to a friend. This is what I do. This is what I've been in school for since 2006. Okay. Like, this is not talking to a friend. First of all, how dare you? Second of all, the training is there. Like, it's a lot.
Well educated.
Yeah. And it's not even just that. It's also like getting the experience from working from so many patients and being like, swing and a miss. I'm not going to use that term again. Like, it's like, you kind of gotta get it. But to answer your question 30 minutes ago, conversational. And I'm also not this talkative in therapy, because it's not their space, but it's different. Like, therapy, how I'm in therapy versus like as a normal human being.
Of course, you're listening. You want them to give you the information, and then you're only responding maybe to what they're saying. I get it.
This is identifying habits, identifying trends, letting them, move in the room and use
You want them to be comfortable. It's their space.
Yeah. I had one patient who was just like, they cursed and they said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I don't mean to offend you." And I was like, wow, that therapy persona is amazing. Like, it's just like, you don't have to apologize for cursing to me. I don't.
What are some misconceptions about therapy and therapists? Because as you mentioned that, it's like, there are a lot of misconceptions, and some that I've realized don't even exist, having been in therapy myself. But from a therapist, what would you say?
That like, some people, I had a patient who used to apologize for talking, and it sounds crazy, but they would like be sharing and things like that.
I've done that.
Have you done that?
I've done that.
Yeah, and be like, I'm apologizing. I was just like, are you not paying me to be here? This is what you paid me for. So that, I don't know. I think it's because misconception that we're like boring people. I don't consider that's actually wrong. I read for fun. Like, I had books around the house. Not the most exciting. That's not a good one. Some of us are boring.
I love reading though.
So, yeah.
I love reading. Yeah.
But like medical, like I have like the corniest humor in life. And every time I laugh at a terrible joke, my husband's like, ugh, yuck. But like, so that, that we may like talk to people like outside of our, like talk about them outside of it. First of all, let me tell you something. Outside of my job, I'm not sitting here talking about you. I have a whole life. Second of all, illegal. We'll lose my job. You can sue me and you can get all the coins, and you should, because what a freak. So I'm not talking about you outside of we do have case consultation, where if you're like in a practice and you're in a hospital and we have like cases and you want to talk about it, like you want more guidance on a difficult case and things of that nature, we do that. But this is also with other psychologists. And also when you sign informed consents and stuff like that, there's a statement that says like, do you feel comfortable with recordings? Do you feel comfortable with that? You can check no. That doesn't mean you can't participate in therapy. That's it. What are some misconceptions you have? I can tell you if it's other than like the apologizing for talking.
Well, that's just something that's happened to me, because you're going on for like 20 minutes on something and the person's just sitting there listening, and that's your job. You're supposed to sit there and listen, and you're probably picking it apart, because my therapist, sometimes I'll go on for 20 minutes and there's something I said at like the third minute.
First 5 minutes.
The first 5 minutes, and she's like, you said this. And I'm like, did I say that? I don't even know why I said that, but I
See,
think,
that's her thing.
yeah.
That's the thing.
And
It's a
you guys know how to listen. You guys know exactly what to listen for. But I think maybe, yeah, that would be a misconception. Another one for me, I think, was that there had to be something wrong with you to go to therapy. I think that's a misconception. Like, you have to know that something's wrong with you before you go to therapy. I think everybody should and could go to therapy no matter what, if anything is going on in their life, because everybody has something that needs to be revealed, I think.
um, yeah, I would say that's a really big one. Like, oh, I had someone who thought that they had to legit have like PTSD to come into therapy. Like,
Yeah.
thought therapy was only for like trauma. And trauma is a big aspect, but I also feel like everyone's not good at identifying so many realms of trauma that you may not be used to. Being Black is traumatic, like having to be in an environment where you've been historically excluded, where your history was torn from you, where you didn't ask to be here, and yet you're being told, like that's traumatic. And it may not be to the point where you're having flashbacks and things of that nature, but you could be seeing someone get killed on TV that looks like your brother, uncle, or you, getting flashbacks to that. That's traumatic. You can come into therapy for so many goals. Just, I want to be happier. I want to build a better habit. I just moved here and I don't feel like I'm transitioning well. I don't understand why I'm having difficulty sleep. So with sleep, a lot of physiological stuff, you go to a doctor and there's no, medical reason for it. Most of the time, like lately, I've had a lot of doctors do really well with giving referrals to us at our clinic, being like, yeah, sleep is bad, eating is bad, weight gain, lack of interest in activities. We've done every test. It's not their body.
Mm-hmm.
It's their body fighting off something in their mind. So even that, like identifying certain factors, I always say, like, reasons to come to therapy can be just big changes or consistent changes that you don't understand why. Lack of interest in activities, not wanting to be around your friends more, not wanting to be alone as much. A bunch of relationships keep ending and you don't know why. Not feeling comfortable around people you used to feel comfortable with. You used to eat healthier and stuff like that, and then you're starting to have more cravings for like junk food and stuff like that, which is natural because as a result of like stress hormone, which is cortisol, and an increase in your stressors, you're not going to crave a salad. You're going to want a pizza, So it's not only about lack of control with like, oh, I have less control with eating. Like, I don't know why I don't have that control. Something is continuing to trigger this need to want to have more like fatty foods. Anytime, and I always say, and I don't know if I said it on the podcast, like anytime my cortisol goes up, I always want like a pizza.
I want a pizza right now.
Yeah. Anytime I'm super
that you're talking about
it. And when I tell people, it's like, oh God, oh man, I want some ice cream. And that's like, anyone in my friend group knows, like, that's how I know when I've hit a certain stressor, because I just crave junk. Like, and it's not only about like, oh, I have lack of discipline with the food. It's also like something's going on.
Something else is going on.
Yeah. I love rich food, but when stressors come up to me, like in my mind, I'm like, I'm about to get like a caramel maki with the flip. Because I just need some sugar. I typically only drink like black coffee. So I don't know. I know the names for stuff, but half the time I'm just like, sugar,
Yeah.
So even if I did a video where I was like, oh, I'm putting sugar in my tea, y'all, it's been a day. Like I drink half my stuff black. So even just needing that extra, like feeling like I need that boost, I need something's off. So you can come to therapy for anything, even if you just want to be happier. And even that patient whose cousin or sister or brother or partner berated them to come into therapy, I always say, like, well, just because they told you you need to be here doesn't mean that you need to talk about what they need you to talk about. When I talk to teens and their kids, like their parents brought them in, I said, your mom don't know what we in here talking about. I mean, like,
yeah,
she gonna make you come here anyway. I mean, we can talk about playing Uno. Oh my God, one of these hospitals at Hopkins used to have a basketball court. I mean, the amount of trickery I had while shooting baskets while they were laughing at me, and I'm learning everything and dinging everything. Like, oh yeah, let's just play basketball. Yeah, it's chill. It's cool. It's cool.
And you're just asking them questions?
Yeah, just kicking it and just talking about stuff. Because it's just like, if it's a conversational style.
Exactly.
I just rock with it. And then after that, I'm writing notes like, informal personality assessment. Like, we need to work on social supports, being able to empower himself, that from a 40-minute basketball game. And it wasn't even a game. Half the time I get schooled. I don't know how to shoot a darn thing. But
you mentioned
this is how I am every realm.
mm-hmm,
This is
mm-hmm.
just, I kind of just like, all right, well, let's rock with it. It can be CBT, it can be a personality assessment, it could be like the intricacies of cognitive dissonance, or it could just be like, your mind's fighting your body. Boom. Like that's what it is.
You mentioned something earlier. You said traumatic. It's traumatic being Black, and I can't help but segue into Black Lives Matter 2020, and I feel like for therapists that must have been a breeding ground for mental health issues all over the place, especially within the Black community. Talk about what Black Lives Matter was from a therapist perspective, and if you noticed any trends, especially within the Black community or areas where you think maybe Black men specifically might have needed help.
I feel like it was a jumping off point for like empowerment. But not only, I feel like a lot of times, and this is as a Black woman, so I'm allowed to say it. A lot of times when it comes to empowerment, we only think of women, and women, and feel as though like women are the only people who need to feel empowered and comfortable with expressing themselves. But I feel like Black Lives Matter also put the onus on men too. Like, this is also important for y'all. We're not, we're sitting here fighting for your lives. You need to fight for your life too. Like so you need to also speak up and also, like, because when you hear female empowerment, some people are like, feminism, oh my God, like, okay. But people don't want to have like male empowerment and things like that. But men need to be empowered too. Like, men need to also identify with the fact that like these people are trying to destroy my body and these people are coming in to support me. I need to advocate for myself. And it doesn't always have to be the destruction of the body. There's so many realms where the government and the history of this world has worked to destroy the Black mind, like, so you don't always have to start with, it doesn't always have to be physical whippings. It can be redlining neighborhoods and feeling like you can't get a business loan and feel like you can never get out of this realm and stuff like that. Like, like showing that and showing that like you have all these people fighting for you, men and women, Black people need to be empowered. And the jumping off point to seeing how much of a pushback it was to just say that Black Lives Matter. I forget the comedian.
Michael Che.
Was that the one who said matter is the
lowest common denominator? That's what we're Matter. Can we agree on matters? Exists. Can we say exists?
I saw this meme that was like saying all lives matter. It's like walking into a funeral and saying, I too have suffered loss. Like, what?
Yeah.
First of all, please leave. How did you get in? Like, but
or if your wife asks you, do you love me? And you say, I love everybody.
It's like, oh, do you?
I love all God's creatures.
It's insane. So like the pushback between that, I feel like even individuals who, like feel like all I have to do is do what I'm supposed to do and everything would be okay. You can't really deny, you can't really deny that that's not true anymore. Right? Like, if you see people like you guys tell us to protest nonviolently and we protest nonviolently. Somebody I forget who it was, she lost her sight because she got a rubber bullet to her eye. Protesting nonviolently. Like, I think it did an amazing job of, and I like the social activism of showing us to fight for our own, but also understanding, I think it also helped when it comes to mental health to not feel so isolated, because it's not only about Black people saying Black Lives Matter, and Black Lives Matter is not solely Black people. There are other people, of all races and ethnicities and cultures and heritage also saying that Black Lives Matter. And I think it also brought a light to the mental health aspect of like, every, it's not possible to say every white person, every white man doesn't, or every white woman like is out to get you or doesn't support you, because it would be like, that's kind of like how certain people think all Black people are the same.
Exactly.
Do you think that's appropriate?
Exactly.
To do that, you can't say that every single Black person has your back. That's not the case either. So why can't, just also seeing that realm, seeing that it's not just Black people saying Black Lives Matter, being advocates and empowering and things of that nature. But I also think that they've also put a good push on the mind body connection, or like on the fact that like, this is something that's detrimental to us. This is something that you need to seek help. There's a big push lately with like Black mental health and being able to find right providers and stuff like that. Therapy for Black girls, therapy for Black men, therapy for Black kids, melanin therapy, and melanin MD, Black doctors, all these websites and stuff like that. And saying that it's okay to decide to seek help. It's also okay to decide that you have the power to advocate for yourself and say, I want a Black clinician. Period.
What do you why do you think more Black men, I want to focus on Black men because I feel like you mentioned that when you think of mental health and you think of advocacy, you think of women, you think of women are usually the ones that are seeking help and getting the help, and Black men are the ones.
I'm saying that society puts more emphasis lately of women versus men. If you think of empowerment within the Black community, do you think more women or men?
Empowerment in the Black community, I would think women immediately. I'm a guy, so I know that it should be us, but I think of women right away.
Yeah, and that dialogue is out there, not because because a lot of times it doesn't get pushed. I will walk up to a Black man and say, "Have you gone to therapy today?" But yeah, let's focus on the Black man. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm saying that that's the narrative. And there's so many different dynamics within the Black community where we say health and empowerment, but not many people think about male empowerment.
What trends did you notice? I'm sure as a therapist, you probably got a lot busier last year. What trends were you noticing people were needing help with specifically? Was it depression? Was it just like motivation? Was it just a lack of a belief that things were going to get any better? I don't know. Like as a therapist perspective in 2020, what did you notice were some of the trends that popped up in mental health?
Oh, all of them. Like every single thing you said. I feel like I had to tell a lot of people to unplug. Because I actually had to start unplugging. It used to be with social media that I only saw people's stuff that I followed. That is not the case anymore. And it used to be, I feel like there used to be some semblance of stuff that we just didn't share on Instagram or social media.
Like what? Like what do you mean?
Like people being murdered. Like I can be scrolling on something and I'll see like, oh, this is the newest way to make pizza, or oh, this is a mental health thing, or oh, and this is seeing someone's last breath. So they did a good thing where now they blur it out. But just the rampant sharing of that. I remember when I was younger when the World Trade Tower. And I remember thinking they showed it on the news all the time, like the tower is falling. And I remember thinking, I wonder how hard it is for someone who lost someone in that to constantly see the moment at which their loved one was murdered.
Every year on September 11th, they need to see it.
Yeah. And I feel like a lot of my recommendations was the unplugging. A lot of people, social media has been a good thing where people are able to build these relationships and connect with people that they wouldn't ordinarily get to meet. You met me through my IG page. You said you want to do an interview? Yeah, let's do it. Easy. But it's also the fact that we have more exposure to stuff that I don't feel as though needs to be exposed to. We also have less control over the stuff that people see. My child can unswipe, even though he doesn't even have screen time, he knows that I press this button to do something. And he will pick up my phone and just try to randomly do stuff. Imagine kids who are older. So they're getting exposed to stuff that they shouldn't get exposure to. Constantly seeing people that look like you being shot and harmed, and everybody knows somebody. Everybody knows a Black person, a Black woman. You're the Black woman, the cousin and someone. It's traumatic. One of the recommendations I had so much lately is unplug. I'm not saying that you don't need to be on social media, but you can choose what realm you're going to be in. If you want to be on something, set a limit. That was a big thing because people don't realize that you're triggering yourself by seeing that, and also doing it under the guise of I'm being informed. That is not helping inform you. How do you notice how you feel in your body? A lot of times it helps if people don't have the ability to key in the emotions. I key in with talking about how your body feels. So if you're looking at your phone, what's your body doing? Are your shoulders up? Are your eyes frowned? Are you tense? Are you breathing heavy? That's a negative response. I notice sometimes if I'm in meetings that suck and I don't realize until the end that my face has been like this the whole time. Just didn't like that. But sometimes if you can't identify with the emotion, I bring it to the body. How's your body feel when you watch this stuff? Where are your shoulders at? fist clench. Everybody knows what fist clench mean. When your fists are clenched,
Mm-hmm.
it's not about to go well. Unplugging was one thing, and boundary setting with their jobs. The pandemic has been absurd. People have tried to replace every single event with a Zoom event. Please stop. It's not necessary. The requirement that people feel to keep their camera on when they're fatigued, the fact that now their person thinks that, oh, you work from home and it's 6 o'clock, even though when you were in the office it was 8 to 5. I need you to respond to this email at 6. No, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. And there's a lot of the companies just saying, well, you're at home, you're not doing anything anyway, so I can send you an email at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, absolutely not. And one of the things I always say to do is like, schedule your sends. Even if you do see that email at 10 o'clock, you can put your response in, schedule it to send at 8:55 or 9 o'clock when you're supposed to be on the clock. They don't need to know that you saw this.
True.
And if you respond, they will know. So stop doing it.
That's a hack. That's like a corporate world professionalism hack, is like write the email and then schedule it to send at 9 a.m. Right away at 9 a.m.
That one time. Mm-hmm. They need that one time. It's inappropriate. The boundary setting, that, and then also finding other ways to seek enjoyment. Because if you're a social person and used to being around your friends and you can't do that, I feel like that's been a big recommendation. Like, let's figure out some other things that interest you. Let's see if we can get you outside for 30 minutes or even active for 30 minutes. There's been a lot of discomfort with certain people and their boundaries with COVID, with like friends are going out and you don't feel comfortable going out, but you also want to see your friends. How do you manage that? Right? Like, I want to see you and I don't feel comfortable going out, but one, I don't feel comfortable telling you I'm not going to be there. And also, I really want to go. Like, how do you balance that? Because peer pressure doesn't stop just when you're a teen.
No way. It just takes on another form when you get older.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like those are the biggest things that have been coming out, especially during the pandemic. And you said we're in the middle of it. I hope this is the middle.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I say that figuratively. We're in the middle of it. We're not. I have no idea where we are in it. They're not done with us yet. Whoever is behind whatever is going on right now, because, yeah, I mean, I'm in Toronto. We're on lockdown. We've been on lockdown since Christmas, basically, since just before Christmas.
That was another difference moving to Tennessee. There's way more stuff open than I had in Maryland. I wasn't used to that.
So, like, our restaurants open? Like, you can go in and go.
Restaurants are open. A lot of my child patients that I do psychological assessments with, schools never closed. They've been in school this whole time. The only time that they had breaks from school was when there was like an uptick in cases, and that was for like a week. Like, restaurants are open, businesses are opening. Like, it was very different coming down here and seeing that like people are like living their life. In Maryland, a lot of times I used to see people in instances when they went to the store, they didn't have a mask, and they were provided with a mask or they were asked to leave. I've been in a couple of stores where people, just aren't wearing them. I told my friend, I was like, it's because everybody around here is carrying guns. So nobody around here is trying to stop somebody from.
Like, people have guns on them?
No, it's like it's a red states and down south, like their weapons. So I think I don't think everyone's carrying weapons, but there's a difference in the freedom of carrying artillery down south, basically. Like, it's not, you can never take away someone's rights to bear arms, period. But in the South, they're very firm about that. So I always say, like, they probably afraid somebody gonna shoot somebody, versus up north, they're like, put it away, put the mask on, or you're out of here. You're not gonna get your freaking avocado, get out. Like, like, it's just, I'm not playing with you. Okay, DC is right there. We don't care. Like, we're not doing it. But that was a big difference. I will say, it's good that you were able to find a therapist during this time, because one of the complaints I've heard a lot is that I'll have a patient and they're like, oh, are you taking on new patients? And I'm not. And they're like, my friend is trying to find somebody and they can't find anybody. Like, they like, everyone's booked. So that's a big thing. I've also noticed that caseloads are full. And it's super tough. Like,
well, I guess I looked kind of early. I looked in April. So that was just as things were about to get started. So I think around the time July, August came around, I'm pretty sure everybody was booked by then. Or maybe even later.
I think there's a duality to that. There's like, one, it's amazing that people are seeking help, but two, worried about the compassion fatigue of so many clinicians who have full caseloads, and there's always this pull to take on another patient. Like I have to set boundaries with myself in that, to be like, oh, you can only meet Friday at 7. Okay, I guess I'll see you Friday at 7. Okay, because you want to help
That's
people.
the worst time. That's the worst time.
But it's hard because it's just like, they're going through so much stuff. What do I do? It's like, this is tough.
Like, you feel responsible? Do you feel obligated, maybe not responsible, but obligated to?
I think responsible is a good word too. I think
Okay.
I always feel some semblance of responsibility for the mental well-being of my patients, because they're coming to me to fix their mental well-being. So there's always that. Plus, I don't know if this has been like all the Black people I'm around and all my Black friends, but like there's always that feel when like you're in a minority to just be like, I got you. Like there's always that, even if it's just like, oh, you need help with this. Even if I, see a parent and she's trying to wrangle her child and I'm like, you need help with that? Let me carry that. So that, like, there's just always this pull to be like, I got you, man. The world out here.
Yeah. Because we get it. We get it. We know what it's like. Right? Yeah.
So it's just like, seeing a Black patient and I'm just being like, I also have a family. I kind of can't do. It's hard because there's that one, as a Black person, we got you. And the other as a clinician, like, it's rough. So I do think that's another thing, like the compassion fatigue with Black clinicians. Cause that's a misconception. We get paid to pretend to care. I've heard that.
Yes.
I typically heard that from older generations, just to be honest. I haven't heard that from some of my same age patients.
I can see that being something like, yeah.
I was like, ma'am, offensive. You pay me for my training. That's what you pay me for. You pay me for my training because that's what I came for, but not to like pretend to care. As a person, don't we naturally care about people anyway?
We should.
Somebody over here trips, you're gonna be like, sucks. Get out of my way. Like you care anyway. You're paying me for my training and my time.
Let's say I have been taking therapy for a while now, and I think I'm at a good place. How do you know you're good to? I could say that better. It's like, how do you know when you no longer need therapy?
With the goals, like, have you achieved your goals? Are you using your coping skills outside of session? Do you feel like you don't need to be in therapy anymore?
Straight up, just simple as that.
Simple as that. Like a lot of times we'll have weekly sessions, and then either I will notice the trends of like benefits, or the patient will, or they come in and they just staring at me like, I had a good week. And I'm like, well, you got 50 minutes. So what you, so the conversation could also be, do you want to switch to biweekly?
Yeah.
Do you, after switching to biweekly, how about we try this? I typically do, like when we do biweekly, and biweekly is a benefit. You have to earn biweekly with me. Okay. You're weekly. Just because you're here, this is, there's only so much work you can do between sessions and before. This is like 24 hours in a day, 168 hours in a week. If you only do 1 hour of therapy, it's less than 5%. You have to show me that we worked on the goals, you're doing the work outside of session. I only got to see you biweekly. And then after that, we may even say like, okay, well, you think you can go 6 weeks? Like, you just want to do a booster session and we'll see how it goes and go from there. And talk about that. And it's because in therapy, we're always talking about goals and we're tracking goals. We'll do like checkups, and I do check-ins on like, you mentioned like the sleep. I've noticed you've been sleeping really well, like 8 hours. You mentioned like lack of interest in activities. I noticed you took on like 2 new hobbies this month and you've been dedicating a good amount of time. You mentioned like having difficulties within your relationship. I noticed you mentioned that you actually felt like you had a good conversation with your spouse and have been, and for a lot of times. You mentioned boundary setting. You told me multiple times how you told someone that's a firm no and you kept it moving. Like, where are you at? Like, what are you feeling? If I see it before they do, I'll say like, how are you feeling about biweekly? And if they see it before me, I'm like, let's talk about it. I feel like I support you in that.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time today, Raquel. This has been...
I'm sorry. I think I went over. I'm very wordy.
No, it's okay. I was like, can I call you Raquel, or can I call you Dr. Raquel? Because I'm like, thanks for your time, Raquel. Dr. Raquel.
No, you can just call me Raquel.
I just feel like whenever anybody is a doctor, you have to say the doctor first, or call them doctor directly.
Oh
Am I
yeah, I get
crazy? Because
that.
I'm not a doctor. I
No,
don't
you're
know.
not crazy. One of my I don't know if you saw this on my Instagram. One of my coworkers,
Yeah.
he's a Black psychologist. He always makes it a point to call me Dr. Martin when we're out and about, because I think he just picked up on the fact that, because I'm younger than some of the clinicians there, that they would just automatically, when I was new to the job, call me Raquel. And he would just so smoothly, he'd be like, oh, so you have met Dr. Martin. You met Dr. Martin already? Oh yeah, Dr. Martin, Dr. Martin, Dr. Martin. Like, like he'll just like put it in there, because he'll just be, he's, so you can read the room, because but then he'll be like, you let them call you darn Raquel. You didn't tell them they call you Raquel. But the fact that they just take that liberty, with just calling me that. And my colleague doesn't call me Raquel, and I'm cool with him. Like, it's like, no, I'm cool with Raquel, but I get where you're coming from. Because
I just
see it as a disrespect. And honestly, when it comes to being a Black doctor, we are more likely to get called, our name. I've actually seen it happen where someone, my intern, the person who was under me, and we got introduced, and they called him G, but like they called him Dr. G, and they called me Raquel. And he said, I actually do not, I haven't finished my training yet. He was still in training. I was supervising him. He said, you would have to talk to Dr. Martin about that. And afterwards I was like, you see that? He said, yeah, it was awkward. For you? For you? He said, yeah, because he said, a lot of times, you hear about stuff, but he said, sometimes, it's funny. He's like, sometimes as a white guy, we're not exposed to a bunch of things. So if, sometimes it can just be like that fairy tale of microaggression until you sit there and you're like, shit, did he just do that? Like, you're just like, and this is an educated person. He's not saying it's a fairy tale, but he's just like, I know about it and I read about stuff and I understand that. But to sit right there and have someone just call you by your first name and assume I'm the doctor and I work under you. Like, yeah. And I was like, yeah. And it's only like 9:00. So I expect about 10 to 12 more aggressions before I leave.
Jeez, for real.
Yeah. But
for real. One of the biggest, for real, like one of the biggest things for me last year, and like just to kind of like put a pin on it, is I noticed I really became aware of the way women are treated, especially in the media, especially Black women, with the whole Breonna Taylor thing, which is another topic. But just the way that women are treated in like in the mainstream media, and all of the things that men are not aware of. Because as a guy, I have a privilege, and as a woman, you have a privilege. But there are certain things that I didn't notice that men were doing as a microaggression all the time. And I became aware of that last year, and I try actively. I mean, I have a little sister. I love women, so I try my best now to think of, okay, how is this going to come off? Am I using a microaggression if I say it this way? Am I being respectful over time? Those sort of things. I think consciously.
I think it's a lot, because
it is
when
a lot.
you as like you mentioned it, well, like as a Black woman, I have a privilege. As a Black male, you have a privilege. There's so many realms that I'm not really privy to. Someone approached me about something about like a Black male adolescent like group. And I was just like, I, can help and like support that. But there are certain realms, and I'm sure everyone will not agree with me on this. There are certain realms that I do not feel I need to be the face of, or like in the forefront of. I just don't think I need to be in everything. Like, yes, I'm a Black psychologist, but a Black male group on teens and like, and I'm just like, I'll do you one better. I'll help you find a Black clinician that's a male. Like, I just don't feel the need to be in every realm, right? Because there are certain things and experiences that as a Black man, you're just going to get better than me. And like, to have a psychologist, I made this joke where it was like me, this teenage boy, he was 17, his grandmom, his aunt, and we're doing family therapy. And I was just sitting there and I just looked at him and I was like, it's probably overwhelming having all these women scream at you right now. Did you want to do one-on-one time? I said, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was it. Now they were like, excuse me? And I was like, this is a lot. Like, y'all have been this whole time. Y'all have to go. We're going to do one-on-one time. Y'all have to leave. Like, it's a lot. So just being mindful of that, and like we'd have different privileges, but I try to squelch my biases with that too, because I'll even make jokes with my husband like, Black man, what's wrong? What's the
what do you got to deal with?
What do you have to complain with?
We have a lot.
You're married to? I'm amazing. Just being like, I'll be like, oh, it must be so hard being a man. Oh my God. And he's just like, all right. Like, you know, having to, one time he was like, yeah, I'm a man, but I'm a black man. So let's be clear.
Yes. That's totally different.
He's like, I am not. I was like, that's a good point. I see what you did there.
we are the threat. We are the threat that needs to be pacified everywhere.
And it's insane because if there is ever a more chill group, black men are the most chill. if I feel like if I'm in a scenario and I'm like trying to do something and I'm like carrying all these bags and dropping something, I mean, all I need to make is eye contact with like one black guy. Let me help you out. Let me help you out there, sis.
He'll run over. He'll run over, hold the door open. He'll get, yeah. Right? Yeah.
Some other person might be like, thought you were a feminist, slam. Like, you know, it's just like.
But if you push us, we will push back.
That's everybody, though.
Is it, though?
That's everybody.
Is it, though?
You push somebody enough, they're gonna bounce back.
I guess so. Some people just will push and fall off the cliff and be like, oh, well, I didn't want to, you know. But I'm in Canada, so I see that maybe a little bit.
That person needs therapy.
They do need therapy. Why are you allowing everyone
to go to therapy if you feel like you're being walked all over and you can't assert yourself? That's another reason for therapy. Everybody needs therapy.
I think everybody needs therapy. Therapy, like I said, for me has been transformational. I've learned so much about myself. And one of the biggest things is that when you learn and you can understand what's going on inside of you, you can see it in other people.
Yeah.
You can identify, oh, you're probably dealing with a lot of trauma. Oh, you're probably dealing with a lot of unhappiness. Oh, maybe you're showing some signs of depression. Maybe there's something there that we can talk about. Like, you can see it in other people.
That makes it tough, though, because sometimes I just want to be irritated with people. You know, like sometimes I just don't feel like being an adult. And I just want to be like, I want it now. But then my brain is always just like, oh, this person's probably miserable. This person's probably sad. And sometimes I just want... It's like I can't just be a jerk sometimes. Sometimes I just want to be like, I don't care. Just do what I asked you to do. It's like, oh, that sounds inappropriate. You probably just ruined their day. Like, you can't even, it's annoying. Sometimes I just want to be a butt. Like, being an adult is exhausting.
It is exhausting.
Sometimes I just want to be like, I don't care. I don't care.
But that's like socially unacceptable and you're not allowed. And
it's also super rude. And
you have to be responsible all the time.
Being a clinician has also helped me realize with all my experience, so many more people are walking around here just sad.
Upset, sad, pissed off.
Not the reason, thinking that that's normal, not having the support system. And honestly, most of the time, my friends are like, I guess you can tell when I'm in a therapy thing because they'll say something. And like I'll apparently change like to my therapy tone because everybody has a therapy voice. And my friend was like, you know, because I'm just having issues with sleeping. And I'm like, oh, how long has that been? She's like, no. No. I'll be like, no, do not therapize. And I'm not going to she calls it, I'm not going to therapize you, but I'm just like, okay, well, I just want to learn more, you know. Did you, but there's definitely a tone. Like it's like it's softer and it's a tone, and they'll just be like, no.
It's like disarming. It's a disarming tone.
Well, yeah. And honestly, as a clinician, you get kind of good at getting people to kind of talk about stuff that may need more, you know, just being like, you know, I thought we were talking about fruit. How did we talk about my biggest fears in life? I don't know. I have a card here for somebody who's accepting patients, though. Totally. Just in case. Yeah.
Exactly.
Most of the time I don't do that because honestly, I'm not getting paid to, and it's none of my business. It's easy to keep that line because most of the stuff, unless you're bringing it to me, it's not my business.
Yeah.
I'm a child adolescent psychologist, and I don't tell people, you couldn't pay me to tell my friends what to do with their children. Girl, I don't know. Give them another cookie. I don't know. I don't work here. No, couldn't tell you.
Well, I want to get you out of here. I know it's you have other things that you need to do. You got your baby boy sleeping in the background.
I gotta put my podcast on the darn thing.
Put your podcast on the So tell us where we can find the podcast. Tell us how we could support you and what we need to do to be better mentally, better health wise mentally.
Well, one, check in with yourself. Provide I like to call them like little pockets of joy. And it doesn't have to be like an hour-long massage. My pocket of joy on rough days is like a cup of black tea and listening to like Aretha Franklin in my office and just being like, this is my 15 minutes, get out of my face.
I'm gonna need a bakery.
Like it doesn't have to be they're called pockets. So, it can also be something like that. And also just being mindful of the link between mind and body as well. Sometimes where it's easier for us to identify changes within our body before we realize that they're likely linked to like a stressor. So you notice the sleeping and the eating and the not liking to do stuff and the way more screen time and the stuff like that. And even just bringing that to your therapist can be helpful, or searching that. And there's so many realms out there. If you want a Black clinician, or if you don't, you can look at, I like Psychology Today because they'll show the picture of the clinician, and there's Therapy for Black Men, Therapy for Black Kids, Melanin ND. Like I have that everywhere. Which Instagram is Raquel Martin, PhD. The podcast is Mind Your Mental Podcast. They're bi-weekly episodes. They're like 15 to 20 minutes just because I just feel like that's digestible. And most of the time it's kind of doing what you're doing, like providing psychoeducation and attributing it to my experience. I'm a big person on narratives, and you only have the narratives that are expressed. So I like to share my experience about how, like, oh, last week was a dumpster fire, y'all. Let me tell you how I was supposed to use the skill and I couldn't do it. And it happens. Like just being like, yes, I told people to challenge their thinking traps, and I was over here catastrophizing all over the place. Like the world is ending because they were out of sugar or something, like just being able to identify with that, because that's one of the things that I think makes it more comfortable to go to therapy and seek help, when it's demystified, when you're able to hear like, this is a psychologist and she talks pretty normal. And not only is she talking about her training, but she also talks about how like her week went really bad.
Sucked.
He was comfortable sharing that and talking about like the skills that they use. But
yeah,
doing that, the podcast is on Spotify and it is on Apple Podcasts, but I am going to add a link tree to my Instagram, because
please do
so much, because it's like, where is your podcast? I thought it was up. Yes, it is up, but it's hard to find it apparently. So it is Mind Your Mental Podcast, bi-weekly, 15 to 20 minutes, me talking about stuff. Last week's episode was about shifting and how shift happens and how do you adjust to it. I recorded it right when I moved to Nashville, and I was just like, I gotta leave. Like it was tough on like my mental health as well. So talking about that. And just look up credible resources. Like there's a difference between a, Instagram person as well as like a licensed mental health professional. Check out credentials. And I'm not saying that people don't have a aspect of folk wisdom. I'm not saying that, but when it comes to therapy, you're paying me for my time and my training. Like I'm not here to tell you that like everything gets better at one point, because honestly, that's not always true. And part of training is knowing like, well, let me help you identify, what are you going to do if it doesn't get better? Not sitting here telling you, giving you platitudes about everything happens for a reason. What? If someone said that to me, I'm like, so I deserve to get thrown out of my apartment and have my job stolen from me and my car broken into? Is that what you're saying? Like,
that's how some people look at the world, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
What? When you look at the world that way, you're able to take out some semblance of control and autonomy over it. Yeah. So when something bad happens, you're able to say, oh, that's not my fault. I didn't have any action, instead of saying, what did I possibly do to contribute to that? It's a cop out. It really is.
It really, yeah, it is.
Because
it is.
If you're able to say this isn't like religion or anything like that, but this is also like, if I'm able to say that everything is due to someone else, then I don't need to take control for my actions, because it's not my fault that happened.
I'm not responsible.
We're offended. That's the way it was meant to be. That's wrong. But yes, I'm gonna put a link tree. But my Instagram is Raquel Martin, PhD. I post like twice a day. Half the time it's like psycho ed. I'm really getting into reels. So I do like those. But just brief things about, yesterday's post was about mindfulness and making it rain, which is like, it's a technique. I'm not saying like go to a strip club and make it rain, but
if you want,
you can practice making it rain. I don't see how you have the income for that right now. And we are in a pandemic, and I don't think the strippers are wearing masks. So be safe. But still,
they're definitely not wearing masks.
They're not wearing masks. That's going to be the one thing that they cover. I don't think so. So most of the time it's just brief psycho ed and like funny videos, but the podcasts are always about like psycho ed and things to improve. My goal with the podcast is really just to get the info out there. There's only so many people I can help while only seeing patients, like with seeing my caseload. Like even having a full caseload and you see 8 people a day, you see like 40 people a week and things of that nature. There's so many more people that need the right information. So the goal of the podcast and the Instagram is just to have it like you're scrolling. Okay, so we're looking at this, we're looking at workouts. Oh, look at this. This tells me a different way to find a clinician. This tells me signs that I may be stressed out, and I have 8 out of 9 of them. Maybe I need to see somebody. Just being able to do that. It's so hard to reach as many people as I want to help, and social media helps me with it, even though I'm not the best at it. I really just want to wish I could just be like, hey, these are the things. Tell every person you know, and then
we all gotta learn the social media thing, because we're gonna get run over if we don't. No one's gonna see our stuff.
It's not going anywhere. I saw this old movie where the person was like, I don't have to get a cell phone. They're gonna go out of style soon. This is a fad. And I had never like looked like, that's what I said about TikTok.
Yeah. I still refuse to download TikTok. I don't have it yet. I just don't need it. I don't want constant streams of videos. Stupid, mindless videos.
You don't need to be in every realm.
I'm not going to be in it. I just don't care that much.
You have a link tree, so
yeah, I do. And my podcast is on Google and Apple and Spotify and YouTube, and I make my clips. I put them on my Instagram, and it sends people to the Spotify, and I get my views and I get my listens and my streams and all that. So I think people are going to want to listen to this one. This is good. I was dying to talk to a therapist, just to have just somebody that's other than mine, somebody that can actually talk about it in a way. And you gave a lot of nuggets, a lot of insight. Thank you for your time. Good. It was great. Yeah, I loved it.
Let me know when everything's up, and let me know if you ever want me to come back, because I love talking to people about psych. I can talk to people about any realm of therapy there is.
Yeah.
Any realm, and then just be like, let me tell you how this is connected to mental health. It's like picking out an orange. Yes, your choice making that orange, has to do with mental health. I can do it.
See, that stuff is really interesting. That's like mentalist. That's like mentalist kind of stuff.
Everything's connected to mental health. Okay. There's nothing that's not. So I can talk to anybody about any of it.
All right. Well, thanks, Raquel, or Dr. Martin.
I said, call me Raquel.
Dr. Martin. Okay. Thank you, Raquel. Thank you, Raquel.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll touch base some other time.
Cool.
All
right, bye.
Peace.